Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Have you ever, found yourself just looking up at the night sky, all those stars, and maybe you're feeling that sense of awe? Or perhaps you're wrestling with some big life uncertainty. And then this question pops up.
Yeah, that deep one.
That really deep one. Who made all this? It feels universal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of searching for a source.
It absolutely is. That question about where it all comes from, it seems fundamental to being human. And today, in this deep dive, we're going to explore how Buddhism specifically tackles this very question.
Okay.
And what you'll find is, well, it takes a surprisingly different route. A really practical path, actually, compared to maybe what we usually think, or even what science often explores.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that, because it really does sound like a radical reframe, doesn't it?
It is.
So our goal today really is to get into how Buddhism redirects that basic inquiry.
Right.
Moving it away from, some external creator out there and turning it inward towards our own inner experience and, well, ultimately towards liberation.
Exactly. It offers this direct path, a way to understand your own suffering and find a real immediate peace right here.
And we're drawing on some great sources for this. Buddhism, from cosmic origins to inner liberation, another one on Buddhist cosmology. And there's also a really interesting YouTube discussion. If there's no creator, why does the universe exist? A gentle Buddhist answer.
Yeah, good stuff. And that instinctive question, who made this? It's incredibly powerful. It's deep in our psychology.
Right.
Psychologists even have a name for it, agency detection. Our brains sort of evolved to look for intention, for a doer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
The survival instinct thing?
Precisely. Think about it. Grass rustles. Is it wind or is it, a predator?
Yeah, hidden tiger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So that instinct helps keep us safe.
And it doesn't just stop there, does it?
Right.
You take that same impulse and apply it to, well, everything, the whole cosmos.
We do. You look up at the galaxies, the sheer scale of it all. And it feels almost natural to think, someone must have put that there. Like our minds want to find a plan, a purpose behind it all.
Yeah, a guiding hand.
Exactly. And that longing for a creator, well, that's something many traditions and theistic religions directly address. They offer a divine creator figure.
Right, giving purpose, control.
And that can be a huge comfort for people, a real emotional anchor. The idea that you were made on purpose, you matter, someone's in charge, especially when things feel chaotic.
And science tackles this too, but differently, obviously.
Very differently.
Modern physics, for instance, the Big Bang, gives us a starting point, kind of.
Sort of, yeah.
Yep.
An explosion of space, time, energy.
But even really brilliant people like Stephen Hawking, they acknowledge there's still this mystery, right? Like, what was before that? What caused it?
Exactly. Hawking even explored ideas about the universe arising from, well, not nothing exactly, but maybe a fertile potential, governed by laws we're still figuring out.
So even with science, that initial who made this question still kind of lingers in the background.
It does. And this is exactly where Buddhism makes its radical turn. Instead of asking who made this or what came before the beginning, the question itself shifts dramatically.
How so?
Buddhism asks, what causes this moment to arise? Or maybe even more pointedly, what's happening right now and why do I suffer?
Wow. Okay. That is a huge shift.
Isn't it?
Moving the focus from way out there, some distant creator, to right here. The internal conditions shaping my immediate experience.
That's precisely it. From the stars in the sky, you could say, to the thoughts in your mind right now.
Okay.
See, the main goal in Buddhism isn't really about building a big cosmic story, about beginnings and ends.
Those are practical.
Much more practical. It's about helping people understand why they suffer and, crucially, how to stop suffering.
Which explains why the Buddhists sometimes didn't answer those big cosmic questions directly.
Exactly. He often remained silent on them. He basically said, look, these questions are interesting, sure, but they don't lead to freedom. They're not useful questions for liberation.
So fascinating, but ultimately a distraction from the real work.
That's the idea. His teaching always points back towards what actually heals, what frees us from pain.
And how did he stress the urgency of focusing on that, on the suffering? Is there a famous story for that?
There is, yeah. A really powerful one. It's the poisoned arrow analogy.
Ah, I think I know this one.
Yeah. So imagine you've been shot by a poisoned arrow, right?
Okay. Painful. Urgent.
Very. Now, would you refuse treatment? Would you say, wait, before you pull it out, I need to know Who shot it? What kind of wood the arrow is made of? What feathers are on it?
Of course not. You'd be dead before you got the answers.
Exactly. And the Buddha used that to show how critical it is to deal with our suffering directly right now. Don't get lost in speculation that doesn't actually help the immediate problem.
That paints a very clear picture. It really grounds things in, well, practical reality. And there's another story too, right? The one about Brahmabhaka, that illustrates that even beings we might think of as gods aren't outside this whole framework.
Ah, yes. The Brahmabhaka story, it's quite something. He was this celestial being, a deva, living in a very high realm for an incredibly long time. So long, in fact, that he came to believe he was the eternal creator, the source of everything.
Okay, so he got lost in his own longevity, basically.
Pretty much. He forgot the causes and conditions that led him there. But then the Buddha pays him a visit.
Yeah.
And very gently, the Buddha shows him that even he, the supposed creator god, is still caught in delusion, still part of the cycle of rebirth, shaped by past actions, by karma, not eternal, not the ultimate source.
Wow. So even a god figure is shown to be part of the process, not above it.
Exactly. It really highlights that everything, no matter how exalted, is interconnected, subject to cause and effect. Nobody stands outside the web.
Okay, so if there's no single creator figure, no divine architect setting things up, how does Buddhism actually see the universe existing? Our minds like neat beginnings, right? A starting pistol fire.
We do, yeah. We like clean starts, daybreak, birth, that first moment.
Then Buddhism says no.
Pretty much, yeah. It challenges that directly. Buddhism teaches there's no single start to the universe as we conceive it.
No single start. So what then?
Instead, it talks about these vast, vast cycles of existence. Things arising, fading away, returning again.
That's samsara, right? The cycle.
That's samsara, exactly. And it's not just about individual lives. It applies to the whole cosmos. Worlds forming, dissolving, reforming. There's a famous line from the Asu Sutta where the Buddha says, unimaginable is the beginning of this samsara.
Unimaginable. Not just unknown, but you can't even conceive of it.
Right. Because it doesn't fit our linear start-to-finish model. It paints the universe less like a built object and more like a flowing river, a living process, always changing.
Okay, a constantly flowing process, no single start point. But how does anything actually happen then? How do things arise and connect moment to moment if there's no central plan?
Now we get to a really core principle. It's called dependent origination, or Pratītyasamutpāda in Sanskrit.
Dependent origination, okay.
The basic idea is simple but profound. Everything arises not from divine command, but from conditions coming together.
Conditions coming together?
Yeah. The principle is, this exists because that exists. Nothing just pops into being on its own. Nothing stands alone.
Nothing stands alone. That sounds incredibly interconnected. Can you give us a way to picture that? An analogy, maybe?
Sure. Think of an incredibly intricate spider web.
Yeah.
Every single strand is connected to others. If you touch one point, the whole web vibrates.
Yeah.
The pulse shifts.
So in this view, the universe is like that web. There's no single starting thread, no spider controlling it all from the center. It's just causes and effects. Conditions meeting, flowing, shaping every single moment.
And this applies to everything.
Everything. From the tiniest feeling that flickers in your mind to whole galaxies, planets, stars, even time itself. It all arises based on preceding conditions. There's always a network, a chain of interdependence.
So for me, listening right now, it means this moment, this feeling, this thought.
Yeah.
It's all part of that web. Exactly. And because it's interconnected, it means you're not just a passive observer. Your actions, your intentions, they ripple through the web. You're participating in creating reality moment by moment.
That's quite empowering, actually.
It is. And what's fascinating is how these ancient ideas seem to, well, resonate with some findings in modern science.
Like Einstein.
Yeah, like Einstein. He had this deep respect for the inherent structure of reality. He saw these interwoven patterns of time, space, energy, everything arising from precise cause and effect.
And quantum physics, too, right? The idea that particles aren't really fixed things until they interact.
Exactly. They're defined by their relationships, in a way. Reality at that level seems more like a woven field than a collection of separate objects. And even Hawking, as we mentioned, exploring the universe, potentially creating itself from this quantum vacuum, this fertile potential. It's not an external builder, but inherent laws unfolding.
So science exploring this dynamic, self-creating reality, it kind of echoes these ancient Buddhist insights in some surprising ways.
It really does seem to. There are interesting parallels there.
You mentioned that fertile potential, that quantum vacuum.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like the idea of emptiness in Buddhism.
Yeah.
Shunyat.
Mm-hmm.
That's a word that trips a lot of people up, though. What's the biggest mistake people make when they hear emptiness?
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, emptiness is probably the most misunderstood concept. The biggest mistake is thinking it means nihilism, like nothing exists or everything is
Like
meaningless.
it's all just void.
Exactly, but that's not it at all. Shunyata, emptiness, actually means nothing exists independently.
Independently. Okay.
It's a way of seeing reality that frees the mind. You recognize there's no fixed solid self, no fixed object, no fixed moment even. Everything is constantly flowing, changing, co-arising with everything else. It's all interdependent.
Can you give an example?
Think about your breath right now. Are you breathing?
Yes.
Did you invent breathing? Did you design your lungs?
No, of course not.
Right, it's just happening. Air comes in, air goes out, like waves on a shore or the wind. It arises because of conditions. That's how everything is. It's not static, it's dynamic, relational, it's not cold or meaningless. It's incredibly intimate, showing how deeply connected you are to everything.
Okay, that makes more sense. Less nothingness, more no-thingness on its own.
That's a good way to put it. No separate thing.
And within this flowing, interconnected, empty reality, there's karma. Another often misunderstood idea. People think of it like cosmic justice, maybe, reward and punishment.
Yeah, that's a common view, but not quite the Buddhist one. Karma isn't judgment from some external judge. Think of it more like a natural law, like gravity, but for intention and action. It's presented as a field of seeds and fruits.
Okay, seeds and fruits. Explain that.
So karma is like the soil. Your actions, your thoughts, words, deeds, driven by intention, are the seeds you plant in that soil.
Right.
And the results, they grow naturally from those seeds because of the connections. It's the natural unfolding of consequences.
So it's not someone giving you the results. It's just what happens when you plant certain seeds.
Precisely. If you consistently act with anger, you cultivate a certain mind state, certain habits, and certain results naturally follow. If you cultivate kindness, wisdom, different results follow.
So it shapes our personal experience
Directly. And Buddhism suggests it shapes even the larger reality, the very realms beings inhabit. It's not a fixed blueprint, but this dynamic self-organizing process where our collective actions weave the fabric of existence. Every thought casts a ripple.
Okay, so the universe is this vast, interconnected, cycling process.
Yeah.
Empty of inherent existence, shaped by karma. Where does that leave us? What's the point, I guess?
Well, the Buddha used another powerful metaphor. He compared the universe, this whole cycle of samsara, to a dream.
A dream.
Yeah. And he suggested that ultimate freedom, true liberation, doesn't come from figuring out exactly what the dream is made of, all the intricate details of cosmology.
From
Waking up from the dream.
waking up, awakening, Bodhi.
Exactly, that's the goal. A profound seeing of reality as it is, free from the distortions, the filters of our usual ego-driven perspective, our attachments.
So the crucial question isn't what's the dream made of?
No. The key question becomes what keeps us dreaming? What keeps us locked in this cycle?
And the Buddhist answer to that is craving, tanha, desire.
That's the core of it, yes. Craving, clinging, attachment. This is the fuel that perpetuates the cosmic dance, as one source put it. It pulls us into forms, identities, worlds, experiences, over and over again.
So when that craving ends...
When craving ceases, the fuel runs out, the wheel stops turning. That's peace, that's liberation, nirvana, freedom from the forces that keep the whole thing going.
So understanding the cosmos intellectually is secondary.
It's not unimportant, but it's secondary to the inner work. The Buddha saw that knowing all about stars doesn't help much if you're still consumed by greed, hatred, confusion inside. The real journey isn't across galaxies, it's within the subtle movements of our own minds.
Right. Understanding how our internal state, our thoughts, feelings, reactions, actually creates our experience of the world. That's where the power lies.
Exactly. That's where you can actually make a change moment by moment. He pointed right here to the present moment. A breath, a feeling, a thought arising and passing.
Yeah, that's where the mystery opens up, not out there.
That's where wisdom is born, yes. In the direct observation of your own experience. Not in the sky itself, maybe, but in the mind that perceives the sky.
And that brings us right back around, doesn't it, to that initial human question, that longing.
It does. Because the Buddha understood very deeply that behind who made the universe, there's often a deeper question lurking.
Which is
really about understanding why life feels the way it does. Why do we hurt? Why do we fear? Why do we hope? What is all this suffering about?
So his redirection wasn't dismissing the question, but seeing the deeper need behind it.
Exactly. His gentle but radical response was basically, okay, you're suffering, let's look there, let's address that directly.
That completely reframes the whole spiritual quest, doesn't it? From looking for answers outside to an internal journey, a transformation. Didn't he say something like, I teach only suffering and the end of suffering?
He did. It wasn't to deny the beauty of the world or curiosity about it. It was to focus our energy where it could make the most difference inward, to our direct experience, where understanding and freedom actually begin.
So the ultimate question shifts again.
Yeah.
From who made this to
What now?
what now?
Yeah. Given this moment, given this life, this experience, what now? How will I respond? How will I engage with pain, with joy, with change?
That puts the power and the responsibility right back on us, on you, the listener.
Absolutely. It empowers you to actively engage with your life right now, to cultivate wisdom, compassion, clarity, freedom through your own consistent effort and practice.
And the peace that comes from that isn't about finding the right cosmic answer.
No, it comes from a much deeper place. From releasing attachments, letting go of fixed ideas, fixed self, needing external validation or cosmic blueprints. It's an inner release.
Okay, so let's just recap this deep dive a little. We've seen how Buddhism takes that fundamental human question about origins
Who made this?
and shifts it radically,
Right.
away from looking for an external fixed creator,
Right.
towards understanding an internal dynamic interconnected process where everything arises based on conditions.
From who made this to what causes this moment.
And finally, to what now? How do I live?
Exactly. That's the core shift.
So maybe a final thought for people to take away and ponder.
How about this? The universe doesn't need a scepter because it was never separate from the ocean.
It's a bit more about that.
Well, it suggests that peace, that deep understanding. It doesn't come from finding some external force that shaped reality, because reality isn't a separate thing that needed shaping. It's all one process.
Like waves are part of the ocean, not sculpted by it.
Precisely. So freedom comes not from intellectual answers about origins out there, but from directly experiencing this interconnectedness, this flow, and finding liberation within that understanding. It allows you to wake up right here and live with more love, more clarity, more freedom.
So the invitation is for you, the listener, to consider, where are you looking for meaning? Outside or
That's
within?
a question worth exploring.